Hi, my name is Ariella Taylor, and I'm doing a presentation on my permaculture design, my first project, in order to get my certification through Jeff Lawton. This is a drawing I've made for Xochitl Juarez. This is her family's property. It's located in Mitla, Oaxaca in Mexico, which has an elevation of 1,700 meters. And is located in the Oaxaca Valley surrounded by mountains. Even though there's a latitude of just 16 degrees north, which places us in the tropics, we're actually more climatically similar to a subtropical climate, actually on the verge of subtropical, and even going into almost temperate. So it can get quite cool at nights. In the winter here it can get down to freezing, or a winter average would be about 3 degrees at night in January. So it can get quite cold, but then we've got a nice warm climate during the day, which is pretty even throughout the year in the mid-20s, 25 degrees Celsius up to 30 degrees, early 30s at its hottest. So it's a fairly arid climate as well. It only gets just over 500 millimeters of rain per year. So that's on the verge of semi-arid. Semi-arid would be under 500 millimeters. So it's quite arid, except for in the summer. We get the summer rains, and they're fairly heavy when it does rain. So we have to be careful of erosion in this climate as well. So this property here is sloping. This is north. It's almost true north. North is at a slight angle like that. And it's actually on a very gradual slope towards north at a 15:1 slope ratio, which is about 6.6 degrees. So very gentle. Normally a north aspect wouldn't be very beneficial because it's facing away from the sun, but with this kind of gentle slope, it doesn't matter too much. We just have to be careful, as always, that we don't plant big tall trees at the south-facing side of the slope. So the plants will go from smaller to larger as you go north in order to capture the sun, even though we will try to create a little bit of shade here as well to protect the plants from the harsh sun in this climate. In this climate, wind is not too much of an issue. We don't get really harsh winds, and they come from all angles, so we're not going to be too concerned with doing any windbreaks. And yeah, that's a general overview of the climate and the location. So the client's objectives for this property is to utilize it for producing food for her family mostly, and to be as self-sustainable as possible, but also ideally there'll be enough surpluses to sell to the markets and make a little bit of an income. We're designing this in order to be as well cost-effective as possible in the installation and not spend too much money on the setup costs, and certain things can be implemented as time goes on as there's more money available. There's also the possibility of it hopefully being an educational facility in the future, and Xochitl will be applying for a grant as well, and if that does come in, there'll be more resources to build it up even further. So the property is about half an acre in total, or around 2,000 meters squared, and it's a fairly sizable property to work with. So for the access, there's already access coming in. Oops, I should mention first that the property is actually owned by 3 different people in the family, and so these little lines here, the red lines, represent the property boundaries, and there is a fence right now that is there that can be utilized or taken down. So, but in total it's about half an acre. So For the access, we've got access along, this is a road coming down here, and the primary access would be here, because in order to access the house, of course, regularly. I've changed the access a little bit here because originally there was a big wide pathway that went here and then here to the house, and nothing is growing except for grass in this big L-shaped strip. So instead, to make more use of garden space, I'm suggesting that we just have the driveway go straight up to the house. And there might be trees in this area planted already, and if that's a problem, then the car driveway doesn't have to go all the way up. It could end here, and there could be just a small footpath here instead. But if possible, it could be nice to have the driveway go all the way up in order to bring building supplies in and easily load the vehicle when you want to bring product out. So that's the main difference in the access. And there's a secondary access over here. And I've just sort of designed it on contour. This is a contour line here. And then it's just a bit wider here so you can back up and leave. I haven't gone in all the way. I don't think it's necessary to utilize the land for too much driveway. And both of these I've suggested to be trellised and to grow productive climbers over them, just to utilize the space more. So that's the access. The water, as we know, it's a almost semi-arid climate, so we're doing all that we can to capture water. The water here, the hard surface water runoff from the roads, will be captured into a reed bed, which will help to clean it. It's actually more like a ditch that is slightly off contour that's sloping towards this pond here. And the reeds along the way will help to clean any pollutants that might be coming from this road. And it'll go into this pond, and of course the pond will have certain water plants that will continue cleaning that water. So water travels all the way down through this property. The pond system is connected by these keyline ditches that are slightly off contour running downhill, allowing the water to run over to the next ponds. So this is actually slightly downhill here, even though it's sloping, because the main contour lines go like that. So it's off contour going slightly downhill to this pond, and then again slightly downhill to this pond, and then again over to this pond, the fourth pond, and then it's being channeled in a pipe. Any overflow can go through the hugel bed and into the wicking bed and into the chinampa, if possible. We've also got two major swales here that will be lined with food forest trees, and a secondary major swale up against the back. And so those are going to soak the water in and support the tree systems around them, whereas the ponds and their keyline ditches are mostly to have water available to irrigate the crops that are nearby if need be. And that might take a few years to fill up and become at their maximum water level. Also, we've got, this house doesn't have any running water at the moment, so it does have a well. So what I'm proposing is, like most houses in Mexico, to have a water tank, elevated water tank, and you need to pump water up to that from the well at this point. And that can source water into the kitchen, which I'll mention in a second. It's different than the original kitchen. And it can, it'll gravity feed, once it's coming from the tank, it'll gravity feed it down to the kitchen sink and into the bathroom, which is newly designed here, and I'll talk about that later, and into the shower as well. And then that's that water tank, and there's another water tank here which is to collect rainwater. And it's actually located as far from the house as possible at an elevation, at the highest elevation possible, furthest from the house possible. You can actually do that because the water is coming from the gutters. These lines indicate the water runoff off of the roof. So the roof is slanting down this way and the other way up here. So you have gutters around the outside, all connecting into one pipe that will go down to the ground, travel to the water tank, and go back up. And it'll actually move the water without a pump, as long as the spout coming out into the tank here is slightly lower than the height of the gutters. It'll actually do that on its own. So we want to position it as far away as possible, just in case we don't have any water in these ponds and we want to use this for irrigation. So we can irrigate everything in here and everything below it. Everything downhill from this water tank. And this can probably be up to 10,000 liters as far as the dimensions of the tank go. Anything higher than that, and the height of the tank is going to get too high and it'll be taller than the roof and it won't work without a pump. Also, it would be nice to have the well connected to this if need be. And then you can, with the well, you would have to use a pump, and it can connect to the same pipe in order to fill the rainwater tank. In hopefully the rare case that you're not going to have any water, pond water or rainwater left in the winter, then you can still pump some well water up here and then use gravity feed drip lines, for example, to irrigate if need be, just as a backup. So the other water elements here, aside from the ponds, swales, and tanks, is the gray water coming out of the house will be collected in this reed beds, which is just slightly off contour for it to very slowly trickle through, get cleaned, and then fill up this chinampa. And so if somebody's living here, a couple people are living here every day, there'll be some water always coming into the chinampa. And then that will overflow into the wicking bed. And this is designed for the top of the gravel of the wicking bed to be at the same level of the water. So if you can imagine that, this will be, the water in here will be the same level as the wicking bed water should be, and it'll just flow nicely, and then any overflow will go into the swale. And then any overflow from this swale, actually any overflow from the main swale will go into this keyline ditch that goes to the pond. And then any overflow from this swale will go gently down here to this very mini narrow swale. And this is finally where the water will exit the property after being utilized as much as I could think of at this moment. So that's about the summary of the water. The structures, we've already got quite a well-designed house for this climate in the fact that it has, this is an L-shaped house here and a big room here, and this big roof is just overhanging and blocking the sun from hitting the walls of the house directly, so it never gets too hot. So that's already nicely designed. What is lacking is there's no bathroom at the moment, and so there's actually an overhang of the roof already right here, so I designed it so that the dry composting toilets are right there. They actually have to be elevated to about 1 meter off the ground, so there's a couple steps up, and then just a step down and a little shower at the back. And I just put a little bench there and a sink there as you turn around the stairs. There's a solar hot water panel here on the roof that will be connected to the water tank, and then it can give you hot water because most days are quite sunny, so that should be sufficient for your hot water shower. So that's the proposed new bathroom sites. Also, I put the tank here because we don't want to block the solar panel. At first I thought it would be nice to put the tank near the well, and the way the roof is, we can't just put it on the roof. Ooh. So the tank is over here. We have an outdoor kitchen, outdoor/indoor kitchen. This little passageway is actually open air. And I'm suggesting to put the kitchen here because in this climate it's quite hot to cook in the day, so you want to have an outdoor kind of kitchen. But in winter it's quite cold, so I'm suggesting that we have some sliding glass doors or other type of enclosement that allows light through but allows you to make it nice and cozy in winter if you want. And also the type of cooking apparatus will be a rocket stove that uses coppice wood that we're going to be growing all along the swales. And that can be channeled, that heat from that rocket stove in winter can be channeled to heat this main room, or in summer it can be channeled to just go outside. So we also have some bottle lights in this room because it's a very dark room. It has very little natural light. For the animal houses, there's an existing coop here that could be used for rabbits and quails. And I'm suggesting a portable micro coop for the chickens. And the reason being is we want to have what's called chicken paddocks. So with temporary fencing and utilizing some of the fencing that we already have, you can move the chickens every 7 to 10 days to do their fertilization, tilling, weed-eating, seed-eating work in different zones, in maybe 10 different zones around here. So that's why the chicken coop will be movable along this main route to access all the different parts of the property when you want them. Storage, there's already a tool shed here, or we might be able to utilize this room, which is underutilized. The fencing, we've already got fencing existing, and that's that. So the growing system, I've slightly mentioned the hugel beds, hugel culture beds. So there's one here. These are sort of trials, the chinampa, the wicking bed, and the hugel bed, and whatever works can be expanded upon. The chinampa in particular is not usually for semi or for arid climates. However, there's a resource that says that it actually works quite well, so we're going to try that out right here. It can be sealed with pond liner or perhaps gleeds if possible. The wicking bed is slightly sunken so that the gravel is at the top of the gravel is at the same level as the water here, and the edges can be built up with sandbanks, and it can be sealed with pond liner or perhaps cement in order to give us a complete sealed wicking bed. And all of these should really help during winter months as far as growing in the dry winter months. They should probably have a lot more water in them compared to these main big crops. So the zones here, it really is mostly Zone 1 intensive gardening. However, Zone 2 would include the food forest swales. And here is going to be a bit of a sunnier area. It's higher up the slope. These are going to be short espalier fruit trees or coppice mulberry. So there'll be a lot of sun coming in this way. So you can do your Zone 2 main crops like amaranth and quinoa in this area. And you can grow anything else you want as well. So Zone 1 here will have a little bit more shade. These are going to be bigger trees. They could also be deciduous fruiting trees. So in summer, when the sun angle is quite low, you do get a little bit more sun in here. And that will be your Zone 1 growing area. And then large trees will be against here, like avocado. And there'll be lots of mulberry grown. Mulberry can be used as chop and drop mulch. It can feed the chickens. And you can also have it as silkworm production hanging over the chinampa to feed the fish that are in the chinampa. So that's Oh, I should mention quickly, there is an existing food forest here that will be thinned. Some of those trees can be moved into the swales, and then it will be turned into a highly pruned, productive garden, kitchen garden, full of a variety of different plants. So I guess that's about it. Any questions?